What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest is a master of hospitality design. She's designed projects with most major hotel brands ranging from Four Seasons to Fairmont to Marriott to Ritz Carltons to Sonesta to Hilton, Waldorf Astorias, Hyatts, InterContinentals, as well as many independent hotels. She is the co-founder and co-owner at Parker-Torres Design. She also is recently a 2022 Platinum Circle Inductee, which is basically like the Hall of Fame for hospitality designers. Ladies and gentlemen, Miriam Torres.
Hi,
Welcome,
Dan.
Miriam.
It's fun to be here. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you here as well. And I know that we've known each other for such a long time. And I'm just always, I love entrepreneurial stories, right? And I just think that what you and Barbara have created, and I know you always joke about it as accidentally creating this business, but the team that you've assembled, the projects that you've worked on, the accolades that you've gotten, I don't know, it's just, it's a really wonderful story. And I know in speaking to you before this, you're like, oh, I hope I do okay and all this, but I said, Miriam, all you have to do is just speak from your heart. And I just know that you're always speaking from your heart.
I do.
And, yeah. So
sometimes it's good. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but
right. But I feel like everyone always knows where they stand with you. Correct?
Yes.
So
I have no filter too, and I go straight to the point, and yeah, where I stand. That's for sure. Everybody does.
Yes. And thinking about that, like speaking from the heart and being from, like, coming always at a place from the heart. I'm curious because, obviously this is called defining hospitality, but that place of the heart and knowing where you stand and just really being open to that and expressing yourself, how has that shaped what your idea of hospitality is? Like, how does that help you define what hospitality is?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess hospitality is the relationship, I guess, between a guest and a host. But for me, really, that relationship is about caring, sharing, welcoming. I mean, this is just like the first words that come to mind. But I don't know. I also, because we're in this industry, it's also to me a state of mind. I think it's also an experience, and to me, it's like a magical place, a dream. So I don't see it as defined like from a dictionary. I see it beyond that, especially now in our industry. So it's really, to me, an experience, and it could be just an amazing and unique experience.
And I love how, in speaking to you before, and then also hearing you say it now, it's kind of like this dream, right?
Yes.
So, and in a dream, it's mostly feeling and it's surreal. Like, how do you convey that dream or that dream state into the works and into your team? And how do you get people to kind of get on board with what the dream and the vision is of a project or some other initiative that you're working on?
Well, we usually, in all the project, we start with a narrative. So it's a lot of research in the place that we're doing, actually, the project. And actually, people don't understand how important that is. We always go back to that narrative. We always have a story, and we do a story that will create a space and a dream, like I keep saying, and an experience. So for us, our foundation is really the narrative of a project. And in that narrative, we decide what the projects will become.
I love it. And then I want to pull on that narrative thread because we also touched upon it a little bit when we were speaking. And I want to go back to before you started Parker-Torres, you were working at Ken Hurd, correct?
I've worked several places, but one of my first job was at Ken Hurd, an associate. He was a big mentor. I mentioned him in Platinum Circle. I worked in the Waldorf Astoria twice for him. And he really taught me a lot. And I believe mentorship is so important. Barbara and I also met working for a Turkish billionaire who, before we started his very 6 stars hotel, took us around the world to learn what 6 star was. So people don't know my background. I was very fortunate. I ended up in this situation, and he took us to the Sharon Palace and the Ritz in Paris and the Creon and Plaza Athénée, and flew us to Lake Como, and then to Milan, and it was crazy. And Barbara and I were able to experience really, really luxury. He said, "You need to do this before you work for me," and I'm like, "Okay." So yeah, people don't know that about us. We're very fortunate, and this is 25 years ago that we had that experience.
Right. So when you had that experience and you two were both working somewhere else and had this experience of what luxury is and getting indoctrinated into it, if you will, could you ever have imagined 4 years later when you get inducted into the Platinum Circle
Not at
as the
all.
co-owner and co-founder? Like, how shocking is that? Like, if
It
you
was
really zoom out.
shocking when they call us. Well, it was shocking because I think Barbara and I have always just worked heads down and no distractions. We don't know what other people are doing. We just work, 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 work. And nobody knows this, but we were in a kickoff meeting at the Four Seasons in Orlando when we got the call. And I stepped out of the meeting, and not knowing, I thought, oh, they keep calling. Is there a problem? And when I was told, I came in the meeting and I had a tear of like, I couldn't believe it, because we have never, I go to that event every year, never occurred to me like, will we part? We just go there and like, oh, wow. And so, no, it was, it is nice to be recognized, especially as a woman. And as a Puerto Rican girl, like, to be recognizing something that you just work hard, not looking for something, you just do the best you can for your client. It was amazing.
Well, okay, so where it's not like you're looking for that accolade or end result, but again, if we go back to speaking from your heart and being in a place of your heart, we all hear those cliches, which I actually don't think are cliches, where if you're really doing what you love and you're passionate about, it's
It
not
is
work,
true.
right?
It
It's
is
just
true.
it's just your life.
It's not work, though I cry many times at night, but stressing out. But I think my business partner and I are fortunate that we're doing what we love. I will do say that. I will do say that.
Yeah, and okay, so then I think another interesting story is, there's so many entrepreneurial stories and journeys out there, but to think about you and Barbara 19 or 20 years ago, where you took that step, right? As two women, we're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to start this company. Like, what was that feeling like? Like, can
Oh,
you go
it's
back to that place?
so she had worked in a very well-known, a lot of people now don't know, but at the time was one of the first companies ever, called Graham International. And she was doing work all over the world. She was there for 19 years, and they closed the office, and she called me, and I said, I won't start until I finish the Waldorf. It was my second time around. And I did finish, and we took the leap. There were no hospitality. Boston has never had a strong hospitality design firm. So that has been very helpful for us, because we've been able to attract the best talent, because we don't have much competition, I will tell you. So we get the best people.
But when you go back to that moment where you want to finish the Waldorf for that second time, and this opportunity is there, like, what was that first step like? Like when you're like, okay, we're doing it.
No, but we were like, okay, we don't want to compete with our bosses. We feel bad. Let's do residential. We did residential for like 4 months, hated it. And it was interesting. People found out and the phone just started ringing, all clients. And we started in my basement, just the two of us.
Mm.
And it's interesting, it's 19 years and there's 30 people in an office building. So we never put $1. We never had a business plan. It's
Wow.
crazy.
So you just followed your hearts and
And
did
work
it.
hard. And you just work hard. I'm telling you.
And was it the basement of your house near Walden Pond?
So it was my basement, my house there. And then I built my dream house. So I ended up the office above the basement, my new house that I dream. And at one point, Barbara said to me, in your piano room, we have a Hyatt. In your living room, we have the Fairmont Copley. In your family room, we have the Marriott Marquis. She's like, Miriam, we have every space in the room, and in your refrigerator is all the food from everybody. She goes, we are so frugal. We have money. We can get an office. And that's what happened. And then we got an office. That's probably about 12 years ago. But we were so frugal. We didn't want to spend money in an office.
But I also love that those stories, bootstrapping and being frugal, especially like being so close to Walden Pond where Thoreau was. Like he
Yeah.
lived like a monk in a little
I
shack.
know. But
And
that's not me.
I
I'm
know
not
it's not
like
you.
that. And people can't believe it. I am frugal when it comes to business and my clients' money. I'm not when it's my own. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
But
But
I don't know. I was such a fan of Henry
it's a
David Thoreau
beautiful
growing up,
area. Yeah.
and it's just
Yeah,
gorgeous. But
yeah.
okay, so then that's actually interesting too. So if you think about, I know we've talked about all these luxury projects as well, and I just know that you work on so many different things, not just luxury. So, ho- like, what is the whole spectrum of what you guys are working on, and like what's exciting you about what
Yeah.
you see out there?
And what is exciting me is the changes that our industry had made for all other interior and architecture industry. I don't think people realize that hospitality design, we're like the founders, or I call it the mother of design, and how we influence everything from corporate, healthcare, academic, residential. I mean, people don't realize the influence and the calls that we get, and I can give you some examples. We got calls from Car Properties. They're one of the biggest developers in office spaces, and they asked us to do their lobbies that had many tiers and many floors. It wasn't just a small lobby. We got a call from Amherst College academic. We did their in, and then they called 3 times until we agreed to do their common areas and their dorms. We got a call from MIT to do their labs. We got a call from residential, most owners of the hotels we do. And I don't think people know the influence. Everybody wants the designers, the hotel designer. Everybody wants that magic. And I think we have a movement, and I think we started this movement, and I don't think people really realize it. So is spread out. It's not just only hotels. And at the beginning, we used to push back and say we don't do Amers. They call 3 times before we agree. We're like, we don't do any dorms, and we don't do libraries, and if I tell you honestly, people don't think about it, how the brand actually started this movement. I mean, I don't
The
think
hotel
people,
brands.
yes, and I don't
Oh,
think people give credit to Hilton or Marriott, specific Marriott. I think, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when they started like the great room
mm.
with the zone or the quiet zone, the library, and the bar in the middle of the lobby. People don't realize, because I think they were like the pioneers, and then we became the creators, right? Like Like we started creating those spaces, but they set that foundation, and people don't realize that where we are now started with Marriott. I really believe so. I mean, Hilton has some other things that they started now that are very interesting, but I think that foundation came from them, and then we created the spaces, and the influence they had is all these people like residential wants rooms that bathrooms that look like spa, right?
Mm.
The corporate world I'm working with doing these office spaces, they incorporate in they asked me to incorporate bars and do their lobbies like it's a hotel, and connectivity and a quiet place and a library, and healthcare the same. I mean, MIT saw the Marriott in Cambridge that we did this like 7 years ago, which is funny because we were just asked to redo it. We're going to start it again. And MIT saw it. We had no idea. They call and they're like, we're interested in you doing some of our lobbies for our labs. And at that one, we were like, we can. We're all over the place. We like to focus on what we do. But that's how much influence our industry has in all facet of design.
I
So it's
I
interesting.
I agree. And actually, I really like your take on how it really started with Marriott maybe 15 or 20 years ago, because if you think about it, that's probably shortly after, I don't know all the dates, but shortly after, because Marriott used to own and operate so many of their hotels, and then everything got really specialized, right? They spun out a lot of their owned assets into host. Then they really started focusing on management and brand.
Every brand has done that. Most brands don't own their property, very few.
Correct. But in doing that, in specializing in the brand feeling.
Yes, they really have specialized in management, branding, and they hire the best people to outsource. They hire consultants
Yeah.
to come up with all the vision. Then their people help us get there. I mean, I used to be very like push back with brands, and it's interesting. I'm very different. I would say the last 10 years, if you get the right people, you grow, you get better, and you can influence incredibly. And the partnerships are amazing. So I'm completely the other way. I'm a brand girl. I think they make us better. I think they keep us in the right path. And if we can all together make more money for our clients, I'm going to get another job.
Totally. I agree. And if you think about, if you look at all the most, even outside of hospitality, but all the most, valuable companies out there in the world are brands, right? It's that brand. It's all that other stuff that is outside of just what the operations and how and what they do. It's like, it's just that bigger feeling. And that's really what
We
drives the
come back
value.
full circle. Is hospitality, is that dream, is welcoming people, but then the design, it all come back from the main word hospitality, and then it all filtered through.
And you also bring up a really good point that I was actually surprised by in a couple of these conversations. It's this idea of a hospitality lens, right? So where everyone, like you said, you're doing education, you're doing laboratories, you're doing all these things that probably wouldn't normally have a hospitality focus or filter on. But again, it goes back to what you were saying, like it's that feeling, that dream, that brand, that what are you trying to convey? And I think in hospitality, we really do a really wonderful job in the built environment of conveying that warmth and feeling and open-heartedness.
Well, I think also, I mean, there's so incredible designers out there and creators that take the brand um, view, and then they create this in magical spaces. And when you think about what hotels are now, when
Mm.
I started 38 years ago, they didn't have that idea of experience, right? And what have they become now? It's like one hotel is topping the other. It's like every time we do a job, we give it our all, and then we see another project, and it's just amazing how the experiences outdoors and lobbies and guest rooms. It's a blast. It's really a blast. I love my job.
And I
You
can
get to
tell.
dream and do whatever you want with somebody else's money.
Totally. I've heard you say the 38 years of experience a bunch. Like, where
It's
were
a
you?
long time, but it doesn't feel that long at
I
all.
know, but okay, let's go back.
I mean, I started really, really young.
Exactly, because you're only 42 now, right? But
Oh, yeah.
if you go back to like what were you doing 40 years ago? What were you doing before you started on this hospitality journey?
Well, I went to college at UMass Amherst, and I was fortunate. They asked you to do a thesis, but you needed to have plans, architectural
Mm.
plans for your thesis. And lucky me, my father had a hotel and the architectural plans of a hotel. And he say, here, and I say, perfect. I was the first student in UMass Amherst who did a hotel. Most people did a resident or an office or a restaurant, which was not a good idea because I had not just a resident, I had a lobby, a restaurant, guest room, a spa. I remember calling my father and said, I need more time. I think I want to go this thesis through the summer. He's like, what? I'm like, the project is so big. He's like, you don't have to do the whole hotel.
Yeah, that's a lot of
So
sleepless nights.
and when I presented my project, they had 5 companies from Boston to critique. It was my senior year. And somebody presented an office building, somebody, which, it was just a lot simpler. And then somebody presented a hair salon, and here I presented a hotel. A gentleman came and gave me his business card. And that's how I got my first job. Courtier Design, they were hotel designers in Boston.
No
Literally
way.
gave me the business card. I moved to Boston. I was in Amherst at the time, UMass Amherst. I moved to Boston. I called them, walked in. They say, bring your project, your senior project. And they all interviewed me, and I got hired. I got hired in college because I did a hotel.
And where did your dad have his hotel?
No, so he didn't own it. It was a partnership. I don't know. He
But in
was,
Puerto Rico?
but he was in Puerto Rico, is in Dorado,
Oh,
and my father was a developer.
got it.
I didn't know what he was doing there. I was too young to. Oh, we had a beach house. So, oh my God, I forgot about this. So my parents had a beach house in this resort, and I don't know how he got the drawings. And it changed my life. So I've never done anything else but hotels.
Wow. And then how did you know before that, when you were deciding to go to UMass Amherst, how did you know that you wanted to get into design?
Oh my God, that's a great question. So I had a very fortunate life. My parents were building their dream house,
Mm.
and maybe I was like 8 or 10, and they took me to the residential designer in Puerto Rico, their offices, and they say, "This is Miriam. Now that you're doing the house, she's gonna do the room with you." Like, they let me, and I was
Wow.
like, "This is the most incredible job." So actually, so this woman designed my room, psychedelic. I love sparkles. Everybody knows that. Like, I'm always glitz. My room was silver, metallic silver, blue and green, crazy. And my parents allowed me, I don't know, they were crazy, to spend the money and do my dream room with this designer. So I said, I want to do this. And I talked about this in Platinum Circle. And my father said, that's not a profession. You have to be an architect. And he sent me to Cornell for a summer program.
Oh, I did that summer program too.
And I did it, and I hated it, but I did it and got the credits. And I say no. And he's like, well, you're supposed to go to school for architecture that I apply. I say, I'm not doing that. And it's a long story. I ended up going to UMass Amherst because he said the only way you can go to school for interior design has to be an accredited school. And I
Mm.
remember I applied there, and I was waitlisted and RESD, and I actually went to see them, fell in love. UMass Amherst had the most incredible brand new building, over the top, and ended up going to school there. He never really love that I was an interior designer. He's an engineer and a big developers, and all my brothers are engineers or bankers. And it took a long time for him to realize that this was a true business. When I started making more money than my engineer brothers, he's like, oh, okay.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I know I go on and I can't believe you asked this. I forgot about it.
So I want to, well, I think I did the same program at
Program.
Cornell. So
So,
what was
oh,
interesting, let me,
yeah,
let me tell you what I thought was most interesting about that program is I always did art. I painted, I drew,
yeah.
photography. So it's like I had so many great art teachers growing up and I was very passionate about it. Um, but when I went to Cornell, it was the first time that they taught us a design process as a means of solving problems.
It was so hard.
It was really hard, but I never thought
It
of
was time consuming. Is that what it was?
it was. I never did all I was in high school. I did 3 or 4 all-nighters in a summer trying to
I
build
did
models and
too. I did. So you go to Cornell, and all my friends from Puerto Rico were taking English as a second language in the morning, and in the afternoon they go to the gorge swimming and get a suntan. No, the architecture student had uh, lecture in the morning and studio in the afternoon, and then we had to do our drawings and homework, and we're up all night. I was like, oh my
cutting our
God.
fingers off with
Yeah,
the
and I've
blades
never
and
done
yeah.
a model. It was a disaster. And literally, I passed because I'm Puerto Rican and we grew up in a very different culture. I was kind of afraid of my dad. I passed because I know he spent a lot of money to send me here and out of respect. But I was like, oh my, it was not like a fun summer at all.
But I also think I walked away from that summer thinking, why don't we teach not just art and fine arts in high school? Why don't we teach
But
what
art,
design is? Teach
yeah, art
design.
design, because people don't know. I mean, you know what? I think my next step in life is to do that. What I like, not to teach, but what I like to do, especially in Puerto Rico, that's my next goal, is to promote our industry.
Mm.
Everywhere I go and people say, what do you do? And I say, I design hotels. They're like, what? That's a job? What? And I realize, especially um, kids that don't have their means will be amazing. That is my next step. I would like to, in Puerto Rico, go to schools, high schools, and talk about it, and show our project and say, if I did it coming from my town, it's a small town. If I did it, you could do it. I would love to promote our industry. I really would. That's what I really want to do.
I think that would be amazing for promoting our industry. But also, if you go to the small town you're from and you tell your story and your story of success, I think it could inspire so many people that don't even want to get into that and to do other things. You know what I mean?
And it can inspire a contractor or an artist to do art for the hotel. It like could branch. I've been thinking that's really my future. I would like to do that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'd love to talk to you more about that at some point because that sounds really exciting. One of the things that's so cool about doing these podcasts is the feedback I get from so many people, but specifically from kids who are in design school or architecture school or in hotel operations school. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you. I never thought about that. And it's almost
Yeah.
like it's kind of all these stories and conversations are really like having some kind of an impact on a lot of people, but really on people who are up and coming. And
Well,
I love it.
I
It
don't know.
fills my bucket.
Well, yeah, no, I don't think we have the best industry. I'm telling you.
I totally agree.
We
That's why
have the
I'm
best
stuck here. You
people.
can't get rid
Like
of me.
we have the best people, the most fun, the best parties.
It really is.
I mean, always come down to the parties to me, but we do
But I
work
think
hard, play hard.
But I think it also comes into like one of the things that I love about what we do and in the different areas of our industry. And it's all about ultimately people want to design that bar or restaurant that they can go have a drink at with their friends, right? And it's that feeling and that warmth. And going back to that, we're all like leading with our hearts here, you know?
Yes, I think most people in this industry is not for the money.
Yeah.
When we're not neurologists and killing it, it just people who are in this industry that are successful, I think is really a passion. Really is.
I totally agree. And it's also being surrounded by all these really passionate people who all
Yes.
care.
And then you
Yeah,
become friend. I mean, I even this is one of those industry that your competitors become your friends, right? I have
totally.
a lot of designers that I bet in projects, and they're my friend. And I'm like, oh, if I didn't get it, but you got it, I'm okay because you're my friend. I'd rather you get it than somebody that I don't know. But I think it's cool to become friends with all the representative and the clients and all the brand people. I love that. I love that I get to work with people that I enjoy their company. I really, I've been lucky in that aspect.
And aside from all of the like-minded people, just to shift gears a little bit, um, I love seeing you and Barbara work together as partners, right? And I think what's so cool is that I don't know if it's like a delineated like lane that all of you are
It
in, but
is.
like you guys are
It is.
so complementary to
But
each other.
it is a lane, but not planned.
Are you okay? So that
Not
was
planned.
that really not planned, or you
No,
guys
not
are just
planned.
like,
A client put us, we work with the client and he said, you guys are the perfect match, the Turkish gentleman. And she was doing all the architectural drawings and I was doing all the FF&E, which is how we run our business. Barbara's gone to the point, she's been out of design about 6 years now, and she's running the business, really running the business. She feels she have people that are super experienced, our age, that gotten so good at it that she's out. And it's interesting because one of the best advice I got was from Alan Benjamin.
mm,
And he said to me, we do a lot of work with him, they're great. And he said to me, hire people better than you. And that's what we've done. No
mm,
ego. And they're like, no, we still need you. And I review everything. But boy, there are people out there that are so good. Have a team that is better than you. I mean, they might not have your experience, and that's what I can bring to the table. But that was a great advice he gave me. He also told me, because he told me, do you think I know how to write a PO anymore? And I say, no, I don't know how to write. I don't know how to get in the computer and do a spec. He goes, well, do you think the CEO of Delta can fly a plane? That changed my vision. I'm like, I don't need to write a spec anymore. That was Alan.
wow. So when you 19 or 20 years ago, when you and Barbara embarked on this entrepreneurial journey, did I know you said you didn't have your lanes planned, or it wasn't a planned way, but how did you guys find your equilibrium?
It happened organically. We never planned anything. And I don't know, she's a planner, I'm not, but we never planned it. We just got the first job and it was the two of us. She was drawing by hand, not even CAD. And I was typing specs and selecting the fabrics. Literally, that's how it all started. And we had nobody, we'd never planned to hire anybody. And one day I said to her, we need to be like a big company. We need to have somebody answer the phone, somebody do the spec. She's like, we don't have any money. And she was teaching hospitality design at night. And she's like, what if I get an intern to help us? Never planned it. And we got an intern turned into 27 people now. So
Wow.
we never planned it. We never put a dollar. Can you believe it? Our cell phone and our old computers.
Wow.
So yeah,
And then
it happened organically. She will do sketch. You know what is so funny? Only like 4 years ago, somebody asked a question and she's like, well, when I designed this sketch with Miriam, I show her imageries of things I want. And she designed the space in a sketch. She said a few years ago, I always design in black and white. I'm like, what? Maybe that's why we never had an issue. She's like, no, I design in black and white. I'm like, in your head, black and white? I never design in black and white. I only design with color.
oh
Isn't that
wow.
crazy? She
No,
sketches this space in black and white. So I guess we never really had a problem because we are completely different. So we bring what the other one doesn't bring. I don't know.
yeah, I'm visualizing like the yin yang, right? It's just the perfect complement, but not overlapping, right?
Yeah, she's also very quiet and very proper. And very bright and
you're very quiet
very
too.
American. And I'm like, wow, crazy Puerto Rican and not proper, whatever. But it's okay. It works. It
You
works.
are proper, but
You
you're
can't
not
have two
quiet.
of the same.
Um, and then as your partnership over the past 20 years has grown and
Yeah.
and you've built this amazing company, like how do you guys like reconnect and like just make sure like everything okay? Are we doing okay? Like, are we on the right course?
I feel like it's always like craziness, honestly. It's
Mm.
craziness. We do get together once in a while. And we're like, oh, another year's gone by, you know? I think when we get together, what is really bizarre, we're so different, but we're so similar. Like people don't understand we finish each other's sentences. And I don't know, it just happened to be that way. And that was just luck. If I get together with her and she's like, it's time to buy, and I say computer, she's like, yeah, or it's time to give so and so, I say a raise. I don't know. We're so in sync and I don't know why. When we would get together, we know what is the next step. Is I remember it's time to get an office, it's time to hire somebody, it's time. I remember at one point we decided to hire a restaurant team. A lot of people don't know that we were doing a really luxurious hotel and we lost the restaurant. I went home and I cried because that's me. She was like, whatever. I cry. And I thought, I'm not doing this again. So I call her, we got together. I'm like, we need to hire a restaurant design team. And people don't realize we have a group of people that only do restaurants or food and beverage. They do markets and bars in our office. And ever since that, a lot of our clients don't outsource the restaurant if they know they're going to get that team. But these are things that happen that she and I are on the same page, and that's how it evolves. And when I start saying it, she finished the sentence.
So you're crying is a good indicator of the direction of where you need to fill in the gaps to continue to grow.
Yeah. Well, my crying is the emotional. Thank God she's level-headed and keeps me in check. But I'm the one that, because of those feelings and that emotion, I need to do something to resolve it, gets me to a good resolution, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I went to bed and the next morning I'm thinking. I'm like, the answer is for me not to lose that, let's hire. And we literally hire a team from a restaurant design firm in Boston. Boop, boop.
Wow.
They've been with us like 12 years.
Wow. That's so awesome. It's amazing. I don't know. I get so being an entrepreneur, I just love hearing all of the other entrepreneurial stories, especially like on the partnership side, because there's so many times partners, it doesn't work out.
I
Right.
hear all the time from other friends of mine in the industry. They're like, oh, what you have is special. What you have is special. I don't know. A client put us together, and the client used to say, you guys will be great. And a good rep of Barbara, a friend of her, will say to her, between the client and the rep, put us together. I think honestly is because we're nothing alike. I mean, my marriage was the same. My husband was, I always say he was like Barbara's brother, because he was like Barbara. And I think we don't ever compete. I don't know. And it's interesting because Barbara and our partnership, we're not like, we don't do things together. It's not like we're spending weekends together. But anytime I have a hardship in my life, or she does in our personal life, we discuss it and we support each other. We have like this really interesting relationship that we're like sisters, but we're not hanging out together. I don't know.
I find that, if I look at, my closest friends, even though we may be, and you guys are really close to each other physically because you're in Boston and in the office when you're not traveling. But when I look at my closest friends, I think the thing that ties us all together is when we all get together, it's that we don't even have to spend time on what all happened. It's just like we just kind of fit together like
It's
pieces of
easy.
a puzzle. Yeah.
Yeah, no, my business with her is easy. Like
Mhm.
so I say this before. I've never had an argument with her in 18 years or a disagreement. That's bizarre.
It's probably because you're all talking to each other with your hearts open, right?
Yeah.
And she's designing black and white, and you're
And I'm
designing
designing
color.
color. Exactly.
Um, so as you look at the journey that you've been on and the 27 plus or minus people that are on your team, and you look at kind of where we've been, all the ups and downs, and kind of what the future looks like, what's exciting you most about like what you see out on the horizon?
I mean, I think for us, we've been doing a lot of luxury in the last like 3 years.
Mm,
I mean, we doing about four Ritz, Denver, Tyson, yeah, four Ritz working on and a Four Season, public spaces in a Fairmont. So it is kind of nice that we get to work in this project, that we do our dream, and we really get to do um and express ourselves all the way with no limitation. So that is exciting to us, because before we will get one like that every so often, but it seems like it's been lately the trend.
mm,
And I think also that clients, we gotten to a point in our industry, Barbara and I, that client kind of trust us.
mm,
And I don't feel like I have to constantly prove myself like I used to. So if I'm doing a Ritz, obviously we have to work hard, and I'm always feel like I'm not good enough, right? That's what makes you work so hard. But I feel like we have delivered. So you have that comfort, and I used to always feel like I was a fraud
mm.
and I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm like, oh, how lucky after I present it. And I don't feel like that anymore. I'm like,
How,
I know
what do
what
you
we're doing.
That's really interesting that I was talking to someone recently, this idea of being a fraud or an imposter. How, what was it that kind of tipped the scales on that to where you were just comfortable with yourself and your ability, and you weren't second guessing, you know, whether you were real or legitimate or not?
I read a book, Leaning In.
Sheryl
Um,
Sandberg.
that's her. Yeah. It changed my life.
Mm,
I sent it to a bunch of clients, and the book is about being a woman and never. I mean, this was like 10 years ago, but being a woman and never feel. You always feel like you're a fraud, right? And you go to these meetings, and you will have this meeting, and then you walk out of the room like, oh, I just faked it. And when I read that book, I'm like, oh my God, that's me.
mm,
And as I read the book, she's like, there's no reason that you fake it. There's just not by chance you fake it. You actually knew what you were talking about. Your experience there, but we're raised in a way that, I mean, I don't want to get into this woman thing because it's personal, right? But you're
mhm,
raised in a way that you might not be good enough. And I don't think I was raised like that, but I fell in the industry, um, that they judge a lot, honestly, when you become a designer, especially if you want to do luxury. Oh, she's never done luxury, or something like that. And it's difficult. But after I read that book, I realized, no, I'm not faking it. The reason that presentation after presentation after presentation is successful, because I know what I'm doing. But it's something that you have to come with terms. I have to be the whole process, and step back and say, there's a reason why I'm doing these properties. There's a reason why we finish the projects and they work and they're in budget and they're beautiful and everybody from the brand and ownership is happy. I'm not a fraud.
mm,
I know what I'm doing, but it takes a long time. And obviously, you do have to have humility. I don't walk out with an ego. I know what I'm doing. I'm the best. Because I feel having some humility and working hard makes you better, because you're always trying to top yourself. And it's not good to think I know it all. And that's when you're going to fail
mm,
again, right? But reading that book changed me to feel secure and to understand that I might know as much of everybody in this room, and not that I always have to say it, which is hard for me to
mm,
hold back, but be secure. You've done this long enough. You've done this for 38 years. You know it. So I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago after I read that book.
And then I mean, she's just an incredible inspiration. And I mean, it was shocking with her. Her husband passed away while running on a treadmill suddenly, right?
Yeah.
And then she wrote another book with Adam Grant, right?
Leading it, no, it
O-
was Plan B, I think, or something B.
Option B.
Option B, which when my husband passed away, I don't want to get into that. I read again. But another thing I learned from her, um, her mentor was her Harvard professor,
Mm.
the finance Summers, what is
Larry
his name?
Summers.
Larry Summers. And when I read her book, how he got her to work with her, I think when he was working for Obama, and then she went to Facebook. But my point of all this, how she spoke in the book how important mentorship is.
Mhm.
And that has been a big thing for us. And that's what we have we're very involved having a really good internship program, and
Well,
how mentorship can change your life.
but you know, the other thing you said earlier in the conversation about going back to Puerto Rico and inspiring and impacting others, right?
Yeah.
So this
Mm.
idea of mentorship, I mean, I don't know. I love doing what I do because in a way I get to impact a lot of people in a lot of different ways, right?
And you know, it's almost like talking to you to realize that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like it verbalize it and bring it to front. Like I wasn't thinking, but I think now after this podcast, I realize I want to go home. I want to mentorship students. I want to show them what we do and what's out there and what a great profession we're involved in. And
Yeah.
I think it's coming out of just talking out loud with you and the whole process. Thank
Oh
you.
man. Well, you're
Thank you.
welcome. Well, and actually, as I'm talking to you recently, in a lot of these conversations, the idea of like impactful books have come up. And I don't actually ask people what's the most impactful book, but it's amazing how so many
That was
people,
a big impact in my business.
yeah.
And I think if you ask me specific of a book, I would not say that. But because you asked me about a topic, then I thought, oh, that's the book that
Mm,
I read that impacted me, right? In many ways.
totally. And I think I want to start asking more people about what's the most impactful book that they've ever read, because I think again it helps shorten other people's journeys towards what they're looking for. And I don't know, I just feel like I love reading. I read probably more than most people, maybe a little bit too much. But I don't know, every book I read or listen to, it always gives me something that can help with
You
my
can learn.
growth,
Yeah.
right? And helps me
Yes.
reframe kind of where I'm coming from. But yeah, Sheryl is freaking amazing. Like
Yeah.
she's a real inspiration.
Successful. Yeah.
Um, okay, so now I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. So we've thought about this future of mentorship, right? Of impacting the next generation, right?
Yeah.
I want to go back to the Miriam who's designing her childhood bedroom, right? How old were you when that happened?
I think like 11.
11. Oh, that's a good year. Okay. So the Miriam that I'm speaking to right now, okay, so it's you and me. Let's say you teleport back into that room with your 11-year-old self. What advice do you have for your 11-year-old self?
What advice I have for 11-year-old self? Um, Work hard, dream big, and never take no for an answer.
I love it.
Never take no for an answer. I think if people look back, they would have never thought what I'd be. And just perseverance. Perseverance.
Perseverance. I love it.
Yes.
Resilience. You got to keep getting up, right?
No, but perseverance. They tell me no, and boy, they don't know what's coming. I don't stop until I get it.
You know, because I think it's all of that passion that you lead with your heart, right? You can't keep your heart down.
I'm very competitive too. I don't know if
love
that's
it.
good or bad, but
No, that's wonderful. Well, I mean, well, I don't know if this conversation in any way helped you
yeah, I did.
kind of coach you on like what's
What I'm
next for
doing
you.
next, yeah.
I mean,
It's not like, I
you
mean,
just
I don't
made my
take,
day.
no, I don't take time to think. And
Mhm.
I'm in a very odd part of my life right now because of what's happened the last 2 years. I love my job and I will never stop working. Um, but in my personal life, I need to do something that can fulfill me that is lacking right now. Maybe that's it. I'm going to Puerto Rico for Christmas, and maybe I can call some of my friends who are teachers, and maybe my first step. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, so I'm going to call you in January. I'm going to put it in my calendar. Okay, what teachers did you talk to and what's
Yeah,
next? How are you
yeah.
impacting the next generation? Can I
I
do that?
Yeah, that would
Okay,
be
good.
cool.
Yeah. All right. Oh, this is super awesome. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Cool. Well, Miriam, this has just been so wonderful and kind of uplifting for me. I guess the same for you. So
Yes.
this is like really unexpected for me. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how can they get in
Oh.
touch and learn more?
Well, anybody can email me. I'm very open and love welcoming people. Miriam at Parker-Torres.com anytime.
Mhm.
I'm very easy to access. I mean, I travel all the time, but I'm always checking my email. I think that's the best way.
Great. And then we'll put up your company website as well. And yeah, that would be awesome. So I guess ultimately, I just want to thank you for your time because this has just been really inspirational
It's
for me
fun.
too. Yeah.
I know. I just go on and on and on because I just open my heart. I hope it's okay.
Oh, it's amazing. Um, and also I want to thank our listeners because I say this all the time, but every week the listenership grows and it's just awesome. And I think because Miriam, it all comes back to what you said that, you tell people that you design or build or are involved in making hotels or these really special environments happen. People are always very intrigued. And I think it's growing every week because people are seeing that this does touch all industries. We're not limited to hospitality. So I want to thank
Correct.
the listeners as well. And listeners, if this has helped change your idea of hospitality, you're creating hospitality through design, please pass it along and we'll catch you next time.